Hello everyone and welcome to this week of First and 10. I'm your host Jason Hagholm, joined as always by my tag team partner Matt Etchier. And Matt, it was another interesting week of OUA football for us. It was, a weekend of homecomings in the Waterloo region, and both the schools we cover definitely were involved in that capacity. More so, we'll start with Laurier, who had their homecoming, and they hosted a powerful offense, much like they faced the previous week in Western in the Windsor Lancers. Laurier trying to get that first win at home, especially on homecoming. And what could be described as an all-time classic game, Matt.
Oh, certainly was. It was a ton of fun to be there. The sun was out. Everyone was just piling in. Very excited for this game. And, Laurier didn't disappoint. They started off very strong. However, Windsor got the first major with Kennedy throwing a touchdown pass to their running back Dender. In the second quarter, Fracas threw his first touchdown pass of the season to Pizzuti. And then at the half, Laurier was up 13-8. Both teams held strong in the third quarter, but Windsor was able to score a couple of majors early in the fourth to make it 25-15, Jason. Just a little lapse there by Laurier's defense, but they were resilient, and Fracas threw another touchdown pass to Campbell. Then they scored a late field goal to force overtime. Laurier Homecoming going into overtime, so much drama there. In overtime, Windsor had the first possession, and Laurier defense held strong and forced them to a single point. And then when Laurier got the ball, they set up for a field goal for the win, and it was blocked. Tough loss for Laurier. They lost it 26-25 in dramatic fashion. It's
something that's unfortunately been a bit of a trend this year for Laurier at home. They lost it in a heartbreaker fashion. So, but for Laurier, there's one thing you can definitely say that the stat sheet doesn't have. It's that they have heart. They have absolutely an amazing amount of heart. And there's just something about them for some reason in that third quarter where a bit of a lapse happens and they let the teams get back in the game. But to their credit, they were able to force overtime. They actually almost won the game on a near touchdown pass by Fracas late, but the officials said the receiver was out of bounds, which is a bit of a close ticky-tacky call. You never know, depending if it had been, say, maybe in a different stadium with the different side edging. You never know. But unfortunately for Laurier, they came out with the short end of the stick. But there's one thing we can tell. This team has grown leaps and bounds since week 1 against Guelph.
Have they ever? You just see improvement everywhere, and especially on the offensive side of the ball. 432 total offensive yards in this game. The best offensive output of the season for Laurier. And we heard from Coach Falls after the last game, and he said that their goal was to not have as many 2-and-outs in this game. And they did that. They had their best time of possession of the season with 32 minutes and 25 seconds of possession. Fracas played great, 22 for 33, 313 yards, 2 touchdowns. Of course, Campbell always there with 26 carries and 127 rushing yards, including that receiving touchdown. Their offense certainly looked great in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Their offense, they've shown, signs that they can, have 1 or 2 drives, but they really put it together this week. Unfortunately for them, it's still a stat in the loss column. That's a very unfortunate thing, but still, you got to give it up for the Laurier Golden Hawks because they were able to really push this Windsor team to the breaking point, and we know Windsor's definitely a playoff-bound team, Matt.
Yeah, exactly, and one of the ways they pushed them around on defense as well. Austin Kennedy, we love him. We love the way he plays. Very high power. They limited him to 200 passing yards, which that's a great feat if you can do that, as well as just in general the Windsor offense only had 383 yards on the day. Just incredible. And then of course you have Calver there on defense getting 9.5 tackles. It always helps when your players can get 9.5 tackles on any given day. Just a great output by Laurier all day long.
Absolutely. Laurier, they definitely brought it for homecoming. Unfortunately, couldn't bring the win there, but there's, just a couple more games left for the Golden Hawks, and their goal right now is, I would say, to hope for a playoff spot, but they can definitely play spoiler and throw a couple wrenches into a couple teams' postseason dreams. Just moving a little up the road, actually, from where the Golden Hawks had their homecoming. Well, the Waterloo Warriors had their version of homecoming, and they hosted the number 6 school in all of Canada, the Guelph Griffins, who, let's face it, folks, this was a tough one on paper. The Warriors, they were going in talking about how they were looking for an upset, and it started out pretty well for Waterloo. They were actually able to, Guelph looked a little nonchalant and, hadn't woken up yet, but once, they were able to get a touchdown in the first quarter, and, Waterloo was able to battle down the field and get a field goal, and you thought, a couple field goals actually, and, be down by 1, you're like, Waterloo, they could potentially do this, but then the second quarter happened, and the Guelph offense that we know and love was there, out in full force. Jazz Lindsay was able to have, I believe, 3 touchdowns in the second, as well as Guelph was able to take back a missed field goal by the Warriors. Sherratt was able to do that for a touchdown. Yeah. So when Waterloo was in trouble going into the half, and sure, Waterloo, I'll give them a little bit of credit in the second half. They were able to put more points on the board in the second half, but it was just too little, too late, as the Griffins were able to win this one 41-19 and do what they had to do, beat a team that they're supposed to beat, and beat them handily, and they absolutely did that, Matt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and this was not unexpected here. Everyone going into the game knew that it was going to be a tough game for Waterloo, and that Guelph should be able to just put on cruise control and win this one, and they certainly did. Their offense, 446 yards on the day. That's one of their best offensive outputs of the season, as well as Augustine got the start, 13 carries, 126 yards. That's his best game since week 1. They were looking good, and Saxon Lindsay, he has been coming on strong the last couple weeks here. 98 yards, 9 catches, 2 touchdowns. Great performance by him.
Yeah, absolutely. As well by Jazz as well. Jazz was definitely motivated to play well in this game. He played a really strong first half, but he threw 4 touchdowns in there. From the 3 in the first, and I believe he got an extra one there in the second half. But the only thing that concerns me for Guelph going forward is, against a team you're really better than, he threw 4 total interceptions against a Waterloo defense not known for too much. I understand you're in cruise control, but you can't have that mentality to be in cruise control, because sooner or later it's going to get you. And you know what? Next week Guelph plays a school that definitely could happen, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of see the worry if you're a Guelph fan. You never want to see your quarterback throw 4 interceptions against any team, and then especially not against a defense that may not be up to par compared to other defenses in the OUA. I would try not to think or look at it too strongly, though. I don't think it's that big of a deal, just because he hasn't thrown one since week 1, or he's only thrown one since week 1. Maybe moving forward, it's obviously something that's there, but I think Jazz Lindsay all season long has been able to take care of the football really well, and I think it might have just been they were up by a lot. He just kind of made some bad decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just it could be that. Their turnovers is not something you never want to do, but in the scenario when your offense and defense are vastly superior than your opponents, it's not too big of an issue. But it's something you definitely don't want to start making a habit when you get out in front by that much. You don't want to just start making careless decisions because you're up by that much, because it could get you, especially the upcoming week against York here.
You're right. Against a better team, that can definitely come back and bite you for sure. But I mean, when you got a defense as good as Guelph's defense, I don't know. Not a lot of teams are going to come back when you're up by a lot. But just great day all around by Guelph, and a great win.
Yeah, great win for Guelph. Tough loss for Laurier, but we saw some real strong signs for them. And you know what? We're going to take a quick break here, Matt, and when we come back, our Player of the Week segment. So stay with us. Welcome back to First and 10, and Matt, it's our Player of the Week segment. we had a lot of strong candidates. I would say again, Saxon Lindsay from the Guelph Griffins with his 9 catches, 2 touchdowns. But we're going to stick with the Golden Hawks one more time here, Matt. We're going to stick with Laurier Golden Hawk quarterback James Fracas, who, dare I say, had his best performance of the season.
Of the season, and I think of his career as well. He played tremendous. Obviously, his lines there, 23 for 33, 70% completion rate. That's up there with all the good quarterbacks in the OUA. 313 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 blemish. Yes, he had that 1 interception that we all know he wants back. But all in all, a great day for Fracas. And one of the biggest things, Jay, I think we both know, I was a little skeptical with this Laurier quarterback change.
A little? You were a little skeptical.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about the move to Fracas, and I hadn't actually really seen what Faulds was thinking until this homecoming game. I remember in one of the interviews, Faulds said that Fracas was a gamer, and there was the one play, the touchdown pass that Fracas threw to Dylan Campbell, where he ripped himself away from a defender and just made that play happen. It was incredible, and it wasn't just that one time. He was doing that all day in this homecoming game. He was just making plays with his feet, with his arms, not giving up, play with a lot of heart, just like the rest of the Laurier team. And my goodness, it was really fun to watch.
It definitely was something fun to watch. You could tell the crowd was into it, especially as the game got down to the final seconds of that fourth and for what overtime was. Fracas, I think, has definitely been the key to the reignition here in the enthusiasm and belief for the Golden Hawks. Ever since they put him in when they had the Battle of Waterloo against the Warriors, he's been a gamer, getting the team the first victory against Waterloo, and, against having a strong performance, I would say, against Western, and obviously now this week against, or past week against Windsor, was definitely, the key to the ignition and the turnaround, I believe. Fracas is definitely proving to make Coach Faulds look like a genius. Sure, it doesn't result in a lot more of the wins, but they're in it more so than not had they maybe have stuck with Julian John. Yeah,
definitely. I think you can definitely say that. And one thing is he has consistently improved in every one of his starts. You can see it statistically as well as watching him on the field. He has played very well. And one other thing that makes him kind of a great story and a great leader for this Laurier team is he is a Waterloo native. He went to Sir John A. Macdonald, played for the Highlanders as quarterback there, as well as played for the Twin City Predators, the local KW football squad. And so that also makes him kind of a leader and maybe a little bit of an emotional attachment to a lot of the fans that are in the Waterloo region, in the Laurier region. But yeah, a great game, Fracas. Player of the week, you deserve it, man.
He absolutely did deserve to be our player of the week. And speaking of that, we spoke with Fracas after the game to talk about his performance against the Windsor Lancers.
There's a lot of plays that I left out on the field. I feel like I helped our team move the ball, but it's tough when you lose, It's tough.
Well, that was James Fracas talking about his performance, and you know what? He may be a little humble there, but he's one certainly to be our player of the week for how well he played. Just quickly finishing up the rest of week 5 of the OUA here, Matt. We had the Varsity Blues get the big 50-10 victory over the Carleton Ravens. The Ottawa GGs 46-16 over the York Lions, and the big one, another homecoming game actually, was Western's homecoming, and they put 50 points up against Queens, but to Queens' credit, they did come back a little bit to make that more of a game. So it was someone's O had to go, and unfortunately for Queens, their O is gone now. Just quickly looking at the league standings, and got a bit more of a clear path coming as the season winds down here. We got Western, Guelph, Queens, Windsor, and Ottawa in the top 5. You got McMaster, York tied for 6th, Toronto solo at 8th, Waterloo, Laurier, and Carleton all round out the bottom. And then looking at the power rankings here for me this week, we have Western, Guelph, Queens, Windsor, McMaster, Ottawa is your top 6 here. Laurier is at 7 because of how they've been playing the past couple weeks. I don't feel that they should be demoted as much as most people would say. York, Toronto, Waterloo, and Carleton are the bottom there. And then looking at the CIS top 10, we normally don't spend too much time on this segment here, but it's been a big jump and change. The pendulum has swung here, especially with the OUA. When you look at the top 5, there are 3 schools from the OUA here in the top 5, with Western being number 1 now. Guelph goes from 6 to 4, and Queen's a bit of a drop from 3 to 5, but still, we have 3 top schools from the OUA inside the CIS top 10, so that's something that's pretty impressive, Matt.
Yeah, definitely, and I think Western should have been number 1 for a couple weeks now. Voters finally realized it.
Well, those Mustangs have Mustanged on and rode all over the rest of the competition here in the OUA, and maybe could over the CIS. But we're going to take a quick break here, Matt, and when we come back, we got some big game previews to take a look at, so stay with us. Welcome back to First and 10, and Matt, we're slowly but surely getting to the end of the season here, and we got some interesting games, I would say, coming up for us this week. We got our first Friday night game. The Friday Night Lights will be out in Guelph at Alumni Stadium as the Guelph Griffins will host the York Lions, who, let's face it, you look at this game on paper, you'd be like, well, it's another Guelph romp. I would beg to differ. I would say these York Lions are an underrated team. They have a pretty actually explosive offense, maybe a little bit of an underrated defense. It's going to be a very interesting matchup to see what this Guelph offense can do against that York defense, Matt.
Certainly, I agree with you for sure. The York is not a team to underlook. They do have very explosive offense, averaging 413 yards per game right now, including they're averaging 222 rushing yards per game right now. First-year running back Errol Brooks, he's coming off a 199-yard performance against Ottawa, and he's the best in the CIS right now, averaging 8.4 yards per carry. So you got to look out for him. Lucky for Guelph, they have a great rush defense. They only give up 54 rushing yards per game. So definitely have the tools to combat York's rushing game, but I think York's rushing game is going to be the toughest one that they've faced so far.
You know what? That's something that's definitely going to be there as well with the run attack. York's quarterback Gibbon, also a nice scrambler out of the pocket. So it's kind of like Guelph, in a way, is kind of facing themselves because they have obviously the skills with Lindsay to get out of the pocket and make plays with his legs, and they have a very strong run attack, as we saw, from the whole season, really, as we've seen what Johnny Augustine can do. Yeah. They had Farquharson on their homecoming game. He did not play last week against Waterloo. Maybe he's still nursing an injury and they didn't want to risk it against, a game they were pretty sure they were going to win against Waterloo. So maybe we'll see the return of Farquharson here, which I think would be a big boost, obviously, going down the stretch here where they're going to need a lot out of him. It's going to be a real exciting matchup because there's been a lot of guys on the offense, not just the run game that stepped up, but as we've said, Saxon Lindsay especially has stepped up here for his brother, making some huge catches when needed. And he's been really the go-to receiver for if we need a big touchdown in the end zone from, a crazy angle or something. I mean, he's going to be the one to get it. So the Lindsays have been the playmakers here for the Guelph Griffins. Yeah, the last couple weeks, and I think they could be again this week. York, they give up over 300 passing yards a game, so definitely that's a weakness of theirs. And they've allowed 15 passing touchdowns in 5 weeks, so throughout the whole season, 15 passing touchdowns. You got to look for Jazz not only to be throwing it to his brother Saxon, but to Charette and the rest of his receiving core. I think that's something they can take advantage of, but still, York solid defensively all around. You know what York is? I mean, like I said, I don't think Guelph's going to take York lightly because they definitely didn't take Waterloo lightly, and sure they may have let the foot off the gas, but they didn't take them lightly, which is something that you can never do, and especially right now with the way the OUA is going, you can't take anyone lightly. So York's going to definitely be a bit of a challenge here for Guelph. It's the last home game of the season for the Griffins, so there's going to be a good amount of support out there. So it's a Friday night game. I mean, under the lights. Can you just feel the enthusiasm going on for the Griffins here? So the Griffins looking to go 6-0, man. That's going to be an impressive feat, especially coming down the stretch here. That is big, and obviously we mentioned it last week. The Guelph's best start to a season in a long time anyway.
anyway. But I think this game is going to be very similar to the games against U of T and Waterloo. I think they can have that kind of production. And as you said, it's going to be fun under the lights Friday night.
Exactly. It's going to be all that, and Guelph's looking to end their season at home with the big win.
Yeah.
Moving on, as the Laurier Golden Hawks, they hit the road. They go up to Kingston to play a team that I don't know if I'd really want to play right now, because Queens, the Gales at home, just getting their first loss of the season, something that could really, really affect them, with a potential bye going into the postseason. It's going to be a tough one. Now, this is a rematch of a playoff game from last year, Matt.
The quarterfinals,
yes, the quarterfinals, where, Laurier lost that, I believe, 34-0.
Yes. And,
Queens, remembers, obviously, running all over Laurier. But, folks, this is not the same Laurier team that was up against these Gales back 1 year ago. So the Golden Hawks are looking to soar and cause an upset here, and would throw some real wrenches into the Queens playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. And as you said, they played last year in the playoffs. So this is a great measuring stick, not only for Laurier, but for Queens as well. Queens to see where they are, and Laurier to see how much they have improved. Queens, as you mentioned, coming off a loss, so they're gonna be looking for some revenge, and they're gonna be wanting another W, even more than usual. But if you're Laurier, you have to continue off of these last 2 weeks. They've had 2 great weeks. As much as they were losses, they were losses where there was a lot of positives that were taken out of them. They played both the teams very hard, and now Queens very similar to them, and so they have to play them very hard. Laurier's offense, they've averaged over 450 yards per game in the last 2 games, and Fracas, obviously, as we've mentioned, is coming off his best career game. He needs to also continue to improve.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Fracas is just game by game getting better and better, and they're going to need his absolute best here against Queens, because we know what Queens can do. They're, they may not have many superstars like, say what a Western does, or, McMaster or Guelph, but they play as a team. They got team atmosphere, team mindset. As an offense, they're a team. As a defense, they're a team. Special teams, team. So they know how to go out there and get the job done in a win. And they, much like Laurier, as we already mentioned, they made a bit of a comeback there against Western for the game last week, as it could have been an absolute romp in London for the Western Mustangs all over Queens, and Queens didn't let that happen. They made the score a little bit closer than what most schools would have done per se in that situation, especially in London. But Queens is now at home in their arena, and they got to make sure that no upsets happen here, because Laurier can definitely do that, especially if they get Dylan Campbell and that play action going, Matt.
Exactly, yeah, and that's got to be one of the keys for Laurier. They ran the ball against Windsor 33 times. It wasn't necessarily their best rushing output of the season, but still running the ball 33 attempts. It led to 70% completion rate for Fracas and 300 passing yards, which is great. That's what you're going to aim for. And so if they can run that ball with Dylan Campbell over and over and over again, it's going to open that up. It's going to give you big plays, as it did. So they got to keep doing that. And then also Laurier needs to stand strong against Queens' balanced attack. As you said, they were able to come back against Western. It doesn't matter what quarter it is or anything like that. They can pass, they can run, so you got to stand strong. Queens, they've really only given up 14 sacks all season, so that's a big challenge for Laurier defensive line to get pressure on Queens quarterback. And then at the same time, the Queens has only thrown 3 interceptions all season. So Laurier's defense isn't really going to get many big plays, but they're definitely they have to play very solid throughout 4 quarters in order to have a chance here.
Well, it's been a bit of a problem for Laurier, but we have seen them play 4 quarters, and what did it result in? A win. So that's something they're definitely going to need to do when they go up to Kingston this weekend. Just quickly, we're running out of time here, Matt, so we're going to have to hit our favorite segment. Quick picks. So, the Battle of Ottawa is finally renewed as the Carleton Ravens taking on the Ottawa GGs. Who do you like, Matt?
GGs.
Got to go with the GGs. The Waterloo Warriors, they hit the road up to Hamilton to take down the McMaster Marauders.
Got to go with McMaster.
Yeah, this could be a slaughter in McMaster. And lastly, a very exciting matchup in my opinion, the 6-0 Western Mustangs taking on the Windsor Lancers.
It is going to be very exciting, but I got to go with Western.
You know what? Until someone can stop Western, I can't pick against them. So, If you have any questions, make sure to follow us on Twitter at FirstAnd10FB. For Matt, I'm your host, Jason Hagholm. Peace out and enjoy some good football.